Okay, today we're talking CoreBits, Google Drive. The idea being that I've done a basic coverage of Google Drive earlier, but this is going to kind of give you a little better idea of what you're actually seeing. There's also something on your computer called G Drive, which is actually the same thing, only different. So I'm going to go through and tell you the bits and pieces of how that works. So we will move on. So Google Drive is nothing more than an online resource, right? It's a storage place. It's a place for your stuff, much like your documents folder in your computer. It's the same concept. It's also a place where you can access the G Suite applications, docs, sheets, all those are kind of housed there by default. And since they're web-based, most people think, well, that's the only place I can get to it. Not quite. The beauty of having this whole thing is this 24/7 access. Typically, when you're in a server environment like we have been with Microsoft and servers and shared folders and all this, you can't really access it everywhere. You have to be here in the building. That's the beauty of Google. If you're out on the road somewhere, as long as you've got internet access, you've got your files, and that's a good thing. With this in mind, you're seeing something called My Drive, and this is in Google speak. So when you're up in Google Drive, what you're actually seeing is something called My Drive. And by the way, after I get done with all my dog and pony here, I'll literally start showing and demonstrating some of this stuff. So you'll see what I'm talking about. My Drive is the equivalent of the H drive internally. It's the same thing. The difference is that you can actually share something out of your My Drive, where on the H drive, literally you're the only person can access it. That's another nice feature in this. Now there's also something called the shared drive. This is a recent thing, the last couple months. Google came out with this. They used to call it Team Drive, and of course they renamed it because they like doing that kind of stuff, because that's what they do.
Just an interruption. That makes it very confusing for us, the users, when things get renamed.
Yes, it does, which is why that's one of the things about Google I dislike. The fact that they, at any given time, will decide, oh yeah, we're going to change this. And there's really no explanation other than I think their hope is that people will migrate off of a server environment, off of their shared drives completely. So the difference with a shared drive is that all the content in that drive is accessible to anybody who is assigned rights to it. We're talking about every document. You really can't control it once it's there. It's the equivalent of the S drive in our infrastructure, the server infrastructure. The nice part about it is that it's instant collaboration. As soon as you drop it in that folder, everybody can access it, everybody can share it, everybody can work on it simultaneously, which you really don't have that advantage in the S drive. You can do it, but it's complicated. And you can still share outside of our organization. So if you have a school district, if you want to share something, you can also do that from within the shared drives. Now the G drive is where people get confused. And I'm glad I did this session about 3 hours ago because it helped me with some of the vocabulary. Really, G drive is a static location of your Google Drive. It's the same stuff. It's a pointer instead. Okay, so normally you would think of a drive and you're thinking of this solid thing. It's not. It's a pointer that's doing nothing more than providing you shortcuts to what's up in Google Drive. Okay, it's accessible anywhere as long as you have internet connection. You can share out of it just like you can share out of Google. It all works. And you have access to both My Drive and any shared drives that you happen to be connected to within that G drive. So it is possible, like I said, to share out of the G drive. And there's a menu option when you right click. It allows you to open with Drive, to copy a link to the document, and that way you can send it to another user as a shared document. Or you can actually share with Drive, and I'll show you what happens when you do that, but it's very similar to what you see when you're up in Google Drive. There's also a refresh option to make sure that it's gone up and completely double-checked and make sure it has all the files that you've been working on. And there is an option to download it as an offline document. And we'll talk about those differences and how all that works. Doing the offline thing is fine. And what it means is when you do offline, you have to be careful about space, because if you indicate that a file is an offline, you want offline access, it's going to download it to your computer. And it will exist in both places. The upside is that if you lose internet access, you'll still have access to the file because the file exists on your computer as well. And then when you hook up to the internet again, it synchronizes. So any changes that you would make here would get populated up there. Do not, do not synchronize your entire My Drive or a shared drive. As a matter of fact, it won't let you do, well, yeah, we'll do, let you do a folder and a shared drive. It'll copy everything. So if you have 1,000 pictures floating around up there like our folks upstairs in communications do, it's going to put every one of those 1,000 pictures down on your hard drive. Your hard drive, if it's like mine, probably has about 190 gig left. Google will let you save as much as you want, unlimited. So yeah, if you're a document hog, that can run you into some trouble. So Google Drive behaviors. Understanding that Google Drive is a worldwide thing. You have access to see it from anywhere. You can also share it to anywhere. So you want to make determinations about where you're sharing from. The idea that, oh gosh, I can just share this, and understanding that if it's in a folder, if you share a folder, everything in that folder from then on is shared with the exact same rights. So you want to be really, really careful and very planful about how you're going to share documents and or folders to the outside world or even internally. Internally, it's pretty easy now because we can do the shared folder and it takes care of it. But definitely want to be careful if you're dealing with school districts or AEs outside. Fortunately, there is a sharing indicator on any file that you share out or a folder. You'll actually see a people icon on it up in the upper right hand or left hand corner, one of those. So you'll always know, gee, I've got this shared. And Google is really pretty good if you've shared a folder and you create a new document in a folder, it will warn you. Do you want this to be shared with everybody who has sharing rights on the folder? So Google tries to help you not do silly things. It's a good thing. Oh, Jennifer turned off her camera. Bye, Jennifer. Okay. The other feature that is a different behavior for Google is that Google Drive will now allow you to directly edit an Office document. So if you have a Word document and you go up and you double click on it, it's going to open up in Drive and you can say, open with Google Docs. Well, instead of converting it to a Google Doc, it allows you to edit it in a docx format. And I'll show you what that looks like. When you do that, it's pretty awesome. However, just like any good thing, there is a gotcha. If you have an Excel that has a formula or a macro that Google doesn't understand, when you go to change something in that Excel spreadsheet, it is going to warn you. You can't do this up here because it has something we don't understand. Would you like us to convert it to a sheet and strip out what we don't understand? which could be a really bad thing if you're not paying attention. So just be aware that it's great for your basic spreadsheets with any of the functions that Google will do. But if it gets too complicated, it's just going to say, not so much. When you're in shared drive, I'm pounding this home because it's really important that people get that all users have rights to anything you put in the shared drive. If they have rights to the drive, they have rights to everything that's in there. The good news is that Google's really good about tracking revision history. Anytime somebody makes a change to a document, opens a document, it documents it. So there's a little place that you can look and see who's actually accessed it. And they actually have it down to the cellular level. And what I mean by that is if you're in a sheet and you make a change in a cell, you can right-click on that cell and find out who did it when, which I think is a little retentive. Okay. And of course, in that same vein, you can get the file information. So if you're confused on whose file it actually is, who created it, sometimes people will make a copy of a file, and they're working in that, and so you don't understand why I shared this document, but your changes aren't showing up, and you go to find out that, oh yeah, they copied it, and it's now their form, and it's all mixed up. Versus G Drive behaviors, okay? Understand that offline does not always launch the G Suite applications correctly. As a matter of fact, it will not if you're offline. Just so you know that. The file, you will see the name of the file, but if you try to open a Google Doc, it will not open it, okay? It just doesn't happen. Non-G Suite files, however, if you have turned on offline access, will open in the Office application locally. So if you have a Microsoft Word document up there, and as long as you have the offline enabled, you double click on that Word document, and actually it doesn't matter whether you're online or offline, you double click on the Word document and it will open in Microsoft Word. This is when you're launching it out of G Drive. Shared drive principles are still in effect, even though it's down in G Drive. All users can make changes. Bear in mind, however, that if it is a Word document or an Excel document and you launch it and it's in Microsoft Word, nobody's going to see your changes until you save them, okay? So once you save, then Google will do its synchronization. So you can't really collaborate unless you are up in Chrome in Google Drive. Does that make sense? Because if you open it out of the G Drive, it launches Word, and that is only on your machine. You won't be able to see changes somebody would be making up in Google Chrome. It's one of the huge confusions about collaboration and this G Drive thing. G Drive is a good thing to a point, but it kind of limits you on how you collaborate. Synchronization actually only occurs with offline files enabled, sort of. If it is a Word document, it will synchronize it. It takes some time. So if you're working on a Word document and she's working on a Word document and you save, it propagates up, but then if you save 10 minutes later, his changes go away because you've been working on it locally. Now, if you're both up on Chrome, you're going to see that each other are working on the document and all those changes will save. Right. Oh, hey, I'm at my Q&A. Now, I try to limit these to about 10 slides, and then I do demos because I find that seems to work better for people. So I will allow you to ask questions later too, because I'm not that strict. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to my own user here because let me get rid of some of this stuff. Get rid of confusion. All right, so this is my drive. All right, and you'll notice I'm going to walk up here. So I'm going to get really close, Jennifer. Over on the left is actually telling you where you are in relationship to everything that's going on. Now I'm in the browser right now. I'm in Google Drive, as it were. So I have my drive, access to my shared drives, Then below that is the next category that shows the shared with me, the recent, the starred, your trash can, and then it's going to give you a number of how much storage you're actually using, which you don't care because it doesn't matter. Frightening that I have 12 gig already. Wow. So in my drive, I have all of the documents that I've ever created and all the folders that I've ever created. And as you can see, I've got a beds folder, a communications folder, etc. So to prove my point, when I open up here and I go to my Google Drive, I actually have my drive and shared drives. I know it's in microscopy, I'm sorry. And if I open my drive, double click, the very same folders are there. So beds, communications, DE news. Beds, communications, DE news. Every one of them is propagated. The difference is, and I apologize again because it's in really, really tiny, you'll note that there is a little cloud on the folder. So if you pop into your G drive and you happen to have it, G drive open, you're going to see a tiny little cloud. And that tiny little cloud is telling you that it does not exist on your computer. It exists up there in the nethers, right? There's also a little people icon on this particular one with a plus sign. That means that not only is it in the cloud, but it's a shared folder. I have shared it with someone. So that's another thing. This is how I know whether or not I have a local copy. So think of all of these as just a link. It's a link up to what's in Google Drive. Makes sense? Even in like a master list, if you were. But if I were to tell it I want an offline copy, I know I have one somewhere. I made one today. There she blows. There is one in the middle of the screen called Open Closed Buildings. It has a regular Excel icon on it instead of a cloud. So because it's in this folder, I know it exists up on Google Drive, but it also has a local copy on my computer. No cloud, in that folder, Excel. You look perplexed.
It's hard to see, obviously.
Right. Unfortunately, I haven't figured out how to blow it up on the screen.
Where's the icon for people? Is that that?
The little people icon is going to be hidden. I can't point on here. I'll have to show you one. It was SBAC. SBAC. Hidden behind the cloud.
Okay.
The little blue person.
That means it's been shared with people.
Correct.
Otherwise, pictures
Is not.
is just in the cloud.
It's in the cloud.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so the question becomes, how does all this actually work, right? So let's just say, for the sake of argument, I want all of the documents in the documents folder to have an offline copy. For whatever reason, I can do that. So I can right-click on him, and in the second grouping, what I call the groupings, I have my Google options. So I can open it in Google Drive, which means that regardless of what it is, a Word document, an Excel document, if I say I want to open it in Google Drive, boom, it's going to open Chrome and it's going to put a new tab and it's going to open there, okay? Or I can copy the link to the clipboard, and if I copy the link, then I can send that off to somebody and they'll be able to get to it. I can share in Google Drive, which is, I find to be a really interesting concept, because if I have a Word document I've been working on, I'm going to go ahead and throw it into my G Drive and share it. So I can do that. And when I do to the share, it's actually going to bring up the same dialog box that I essentially get when I click share up in the browser. All I have to do is either type in a name. I think you're Matthew, aren't you?
Yes.
I can do Matthew Coulter. No, it didn't pick up your email address, so I did it with somebody else and they got my email address. Boy, you're no fun. There, I just had to hit return. So once I do that, I can do a string of people. I can also assign rights, so they can be can organize that and edit, or can just view only. And it's going to be different if it's an individual file, by the way. This happens to be the folder ones. And then I can also add a note. I can notify using that note, or if I uncheck it, it's not going to do anything other than assign them the rights, and it'll show up in the shared with me. I click send, boom. I have now shared that with that individual or group. And it's all right from the G drive rather than have to open up a browser. And there are advanced features too. So you can see who is already shared with it. I can get the link from here, can send a copy of whatever note I sent to myself, etc. Cancel. Kill. All right. So this file that I brought down, the open and closed buildings for 2017, if I open this from here, it's going to think for a second. It's going to download it and make sure it's got a copy. And it opened it in Microsoft Excel because it knows it's an Excel document. All right. I can make changes here. I can save those changes. They will propagate up to, close that. Nope, don't say that. It will propagate up to Google. I will tell you, it takes it a little bit of time. Okay? And I proved this earlier in a session because I opened up one in Drive and I made a change. I didn't wait long enough and the change hadn't propagated yet. I had to close the document and reopen it. So it is a little bit time consuming. Now, if I tell it I want to open it in Drive, it's going to take me to Chrome, and it's going to open it up here in preview mode. Okay, so it's just showing you the document, but in the middle, top middle, it says open with. I can open it now with Google Sheets. When I open it in Google Sheets, it did not convert it. And the reason I know it did not convert it is that XLSX shows up. So I am directly editing an Excel document. That's how I can tell I'm doing that. And again, if I try to make a change and there's something that it doesn't like, Google will warn you. And if you continue, it just converts it to a sheet. It's no longer an Excel document. Now, the Excel document will still exist, but any changes that you make are now on a Google Sheet rather than in Excel. This works for Docs and PowerPoint as well. That's that. Close this up.
So if you had a PowerPoint in Microsoft and you save it to this drive, and then you're in a meeting and you want to share that with others, you can go to your G drive and open it up, even though it was in PowerPoint. Mm-hmm. You can share it and potentially all could edit.
That is correct.
But it has to be saved to this.
Yeah, it would have to be in your G drive. That is correct. Okay. If you want collaboration, that is the best way by far to do it. Okay. And actually, it's really the easiest way. You don't have to go through the hassle of, once you share it, they get a notification. They get an email, and that email is going to have a link right in it. Hit the link, boom, it's going to open up. It's pretty slick. It's really a nice thing. Again, some of the gotchas, there really aren't many. Again, Excel, I think, is the biggest one. PowerPoint, if you take one of my sessions on slides, I kind of go over the differences. I will tell you that I'm not real happy with slides. It's just not as feature rich.
I agree.
But I can give you my lecture on how that works too. Maybe another time. A different conversation. So I showed you already what happens when you right click here. The other one is Drive File Stream. And this is where you're going to tell it whether you want it available offline or not. So when that Drive File Stream is the technology that actually creates the G drive for you. And that's where you're going to tell it, yeah, I want this file to be available offline. Interestingly, this will only work for files that are not Google. Because if I go and try to do a GDoc, so basics of Google.gdoc, GDoc is their extension. If I right click on this and go down to Drive File Stream, oops, it's grayed out. And it's grayed out because it has no way of opening that file if you are offline. It has to have all of the code that they've created the document with exists in the cloud, and there's no way for you to be able to download it here to where it would understand it. Because it's a very, very, very complicated, long file. If you look at Word, it's bad. If you look at theirs, it's worse. And it goes back to my explanation of why. Maybe I should tell you that. Have you ever wondered why these are all so weird? If you've ever used Office 365 and used their web versions of things, they're not as feature rich. As a matter of fact, they have fewer features than Google on their own product. And this is because Microsoft built the operating system. Microsoft built Office. It built Office for one purpose, to work on its operating system. So they wrote it all. It's all internal. Real easy to work. If they make a change in the operating system, they make a change in Office, then it all works happily ever after. Google wrote Chrome. So Google Chrome is theirs. Then they wrote their apps. And that's great, except Google wrote their apps so that not only will it work in Google Chrome, it has to work in Internet Explorer and Firefox and Edge and Safari. And all of them wrote their browser in a slightly different way with the idea that we're going to make it better. You know, Google does the same thing to themselves. They think they're going to make it better, and they go through all their beta testing, do everything, and they break something. They're trying to write their software, their application, to a very, very, very wide audience. And all of those little operating systems, the browsers, are slightly different. So they have to go through 5 times the testing, 10 times the testing to make sure that what they're creating is going to work no matter what you're working on. Microsoft doesn't have to worry about that. So for them, building in complexity is building in complexity for one operating system. For Google, it covers a massive, massive amount of code. So understand that's why when you think, man, Google, I wish Google did that. Yeah, try to write the code. Try to write the code and make it happen. So that's my short explanation of why it works that way. All right, so you got My Drive, and you understand that My Drive behaves very similar to the folder and file infrastructure in Microsoft world. If I want to put one folder inside of another folder, I can literally drag and drop it if I want to. I can do the same thing with files. I can drag and drop them. I can take a file and drag and drop it into another folder by expanding over here. It's going to give me a list of all my folders. If I want this document to go over there, I can grab it and I can drop it over there, and all is good. It all behaves the same way. If I decide that I want to share this entire Google training folder, I can right-click on that folder and I can say, go, let's share. Or I can get a shareable link that I can send to particular people. I have all these options really quick. And that right click, it's amazing. When you first started right clicking in Google stuff, Google Documents and such, there were very few options. There might have been 5. Now you've got a huge list of them, an amazing amount of them. If I go to this document, you can see all of the choices that I have. Let me have to scroll here to see all of them even. Lost my mouse. There she blows. Do that again. So I have all of these options now that, again, many of them were never even there before, and because they just hadn't thought about it. And most of them are pretty self-explanatory. One of them I told you about is view details and manage versions. So if I had created a new version of this, there would be multiple versions coming down here, and it will maintain all of them up to 15, I believe. I'm not really positive on that. It's also telling me that I had one older version that was deleted after 30 days or 100 versions. So my answer to my question is 100 now. To avoid deletion, select keep forever in the file's context menu. Most people don't do that because it becomes ponderous. But as you can see, there have been previous documents to this, but I did not save them. Also, I can view the details. When I view the details, it's going to appear over here on the right. And most people, the first thing you see is the activity. It tells me that I created it on June 28th, but I can also go over here to details. And when I go to the details, it's going to show me all sorts of things. A small snapshot, what kind of file, how big it is, location, which is often handy when I've lost something, modification date, who owns it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you have all of that information contained right in there. I can add a description. It tells me what the viewer can actually do. If somebody else modified it other than me, it would be listed there with a time and a date stamp. Of course, nobody has edited this one, and I really haven't shared any documents that anybody would have made changes to. Let's see. So I wrote notes to myself on the basics of Chrome. Trying to see down here in the bottom right-hand corner, you have Explore. Really, really tiny over there. If there has any kind of suggestions for you, it'll actually show up here. And this applies to any Google Doc. And when I say suggestions, let's say you have certain formatting going on. It'll look at it and examine it and say, you know what? It might be better if you did this. If you're in slides, it's kind of like PowerPoint will suggest different backgrounds for you. Slides will do the same thing. It'll actually suggest a new background. All of those little things that people miss, and this is a new feature of Google. It's been around, I don't know, maybe 8 months. So when I say new, it's everything's relative. Okay. What else did I cover in all of this? All right, let's talk about shared drives. When you're assigned to a shared drive, it's going to show up and there's a standard naming convention. So all of them are prepended with IDOE. After IDOE, it's going to be descriptive to whatever you asked it to be. So for example, DE News, I share with the communications folks. So Stacy Hupp and her team. Google Gurus is my guru group. IAS Bureau is where I used to work before I was doing this job. And then of course Technology Group, which is where I'm working right now. Anybody can request a shared drive. It has to then go to your bureau chief, and then they will send that on to me or to Todd. and we'll get that enabled for you. You're not limited to your bureau. You can have a cadre of people who are working on a project that's crossing bureaus, and you want a place where you can quickly share that stuff. Just let your bureau chief know. Boom, tell Todd who you want to share it with. It's ready to go. And now it's under your shared drives, and you have an easy location to set things up that everybody can get to. Now, the really cool thing that came out a couple of months ago is Priority. Priority is a place where you can create something called a workspace. So you're working on a project. You got a couple of Word docs, but you've also got a Google Doc, and you've got maybe a Sheets, and you've got a slide prepared and a PowerPoint and a couple PDFs, et cetera, et cetera. You want to be able to get your hands on them quick without having to search for them each time. You drop it into a workspace. I go to Priority. You have a workspace listed. All of those documents that apply to that project are right there. It's kind of Google's version of OneNote. It's the same kind of process. And you say to yourself, well, I can put them all into a folder. Well, if it's a shared document that someone shared with you, you can't put it in a folder. Because when you put it in a folder, it says, make a copy. And that's the only opportunity you have. And if you make a copy of a file, but you're trying to collaborate on it, guess what? You're no longer collaborating on the shared file. You have your own version of that file. That confuse you?
Well, then you can't collaborate on that document then?
Correct, unless you go find that document. See, but the one that you put in that happy folder is no longer the shared document. It's a copy of the shared document. But when you use workspaces, you can put a shared document link into the workspaces. Now you know you're actually editing, sharing the correct document. This was a really smart solution on their part. And I just recently figured that out. That, gosh, because I didn't understand. Why would I use workspaces? Now I understand. If somebody from outside the organization shared a document with you, I just drop it into that workspace, and now I have access to it. Really quick, really easy. Make sensible? Awesome. Wow. I went through this fast. Hi, Jennifer. Can you hear me still? You'll have to come back. I can unmute her. My little people thing will come out. There it is. Hi, Jennifer. I'm trying to unmute you. You don't have a microphone. Are you not on your laptop? You must not be on your laptop. Or she's gone away, one or the other. Yeah, okay. Questions? Can I help you with anything that still confuses you? Because I do want you to feel clarity when you walk out the room. Go ahead. Give it to me. Go ahead. Challenge me.
Well, when you go, well, this is an easy question, but when I get overwhelmed by looking at my drive when people have shared everything, and I would like to have it more organized, and so I kind of like the G Drive thing that puts it in a format that is like what we're used to seeing on a drive. Right.
You know that you can change the view, right?
And so I need the remedial course, I guess, on creating folders that I can drop things into to organize all of that. When people share with me, it just becomes so.
Right. And I think, yeah, if somebody's sharing something with you, that's the hard part, right? Because I agree with you. When I go to shared with me, it's a cacophony of stuff,
Right.
right? I think that's where creating a priority workspace is going to help you. Because if you have somebody share something with you, let's just say I got the October 8th regular meeting recently. It just came across. If I right click on it, add to workspace. So I can create a new workspace for that document, and I can create as many workspaces as I want to. So if I'm getting them from a particular team, I would just make a workspace under priority for that team and just assign that document there. And now you have a common place. It operates kind of like a folder. Does that help?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's really one of the most effective ways to use that priority setup and create those workspaces. And the nice part is if you don't have the workspace created, you can, when you right click on it, you can make it right there and then. Good question. Because I totally agree. The shared with me is puzzling. And unfortunately, there's no way to create a folder structure within that. Because if you do and drop it into a folder, boom, now you have a copy. You no longer have the shared document, which blows the entire thing away. People, as they have learned, you notice that I have a whole ton of shared folders. In those circumstances, a shared folder is your friend, because now I can open the folder and it's only going to give me the files that are within that folder. And so if you have a team sharing a whole bunch of stuff, that's one way they can do it. And that's the old way of doing it before they created the shared drives situation. So that's, so for internal purposes, the shared drives is awesome. It's a little more complicated once you start inviting people from the outside in. So just be aware that that's not always the best thing. You have a brow knit over there too, Master Coulter.
Well, I don't understand how things have gotten into my drive.
Really?
Really.
Okay.
There are a lot of items out there that I don't have any recollection of physically moving.
Are most of them like office documents?
There are several office documents
that you don't think you put in the G drive?
I don't think I would have. I use the S drive.
Okay, for shared.
Yeah.
Huh.
And these are in my drive.
His files are breeding.
Yeah. Mine might be too, who knows?
So the question becomes, are they your files?
Some are my files and some I had shared through email with others, perhaps.
I wonder if somebody shared it back with you, or when you shared it, it put the document in there because you sent it that way.
Well, I don't want to get into the weeds too much, but here is a grant award notification for, I think, a Perkins grant. And for some reason, it's in my drive. I don't really have any reason that I would have put it in my drive.
Can you right click on it and view details for me, please?
Yes.
Who owns it?
Details.
There's activity, right? And then next
Yeah.
to it, you should see details. You have to click on it.
There.
Who owns it?
Opened by me.
Date?
Me.
Right.
In 2017, it was modified and then opened by me January 8th of 2019.
Sounds like you edited it.
And to be honest, this is a document that I cannot edit. It's a PDF.
Oh, it's a saved PDF.
Yeah. It's a picture of a grant award from the
Right.
federal government.
Right. In a PDF format.
PDF.
In your OneDrive.
Yes.
Wow.
And again, I don't know why it would be there. I don't have a reason that it would need to be there.
I love conundrums. This is fun. I have no idea why that would be there. I'm trying to think if you sent it as an attachment,
That is possible.
but I don't think Drive would pick that up necessarily.
Okay.
I have never experienced that personally, but I'm now curious. I'm going to have to start mailing stuff to myself and see
All right.
if it shows up there. Because it stores it somewhere. Google stores it somewhere.
And just to add to the conundrum, I possibly could have shared dozens of that type of file previously. I've only got that one
Right. Right.
in my drive.
Which makes me suspect on how it got shared.
Yeah.
Because I've seen odd sharing behavior before where it ended up putting it in an accessible place. Is it shared with anybody?
How do I tell that again?
And again, that should just be a,
Details?
yep, details should tell you that it's shared or not.
I'm not seeing that anywhere, that it is shared.
Oh, go ahead and right click on it.
Yeah.
Again, and click share. And then click advanced in the lower right hand corner. And it will tell you if it's been shared with anybody else.
Private, only I can access.
And you're listed as the owner.
Yes.
Well, Matt, what did you do?
I don't know.
It's an end user error. You know that, right?
Well, of course.
When I can't explain it, it's an end user error. I'm very curious on when that may have happened. That's really interesting.
Okay.
Did you maybe move some stuff to G Drive in anticipation of us handing you a new computer?
No,
Okay.
I absolutely did not do that.
Okay. Very interesting. I do not know. I do not have a good answer for you.
Okay.
Wow. He stumped me.
That's my conundrum. I don't know how these things got here because I frankly haven't really moved anything
Sure.
to my drive.
Curiosity, where would you have put that file?
I suspect it only existed in emails, and I wouldn't have saved it anywhere except passing it to and from emails. I would have downloaded it when I first received it, either from the federal government or from the point of contact
Okay.
or our agency from that federal agency. And so it got sent to me, and I shared it out with people who need to be aware of that grant award.
Okay.
So I would have
Just email it.
maybe dragged it to my desktop
Okay.
and then dragged it back into an email.
Okay.
Or the other way would be to download it and then drag it from
Downloads
the
folder.
downloads folder
Right.
into an email.
Into-
That's really what I would have done with that file.
You're making me wonder if, well, except how often do you do that? You probably do that a lot.
During the new grant season, I would do it a couple of dozen times.
I'd be curious to know if those couple dozen of files are in your drive now.
Well, only the one is in my drive.
Okay.
And I have very little in shared drives. It's not there.
Okay. So you just have a lone singleton sitting there. But
Yes.
You're saying though you have lots of files there that you can't really explain.
Yes. A couple of dozen.
But they have been shared with other people via email, curiosity,
Some of them, yes.
but not all.
Not necessarily all.
To the Google, I'll be researching. That's a really interesting behavior.
I've got a signature file in my drive.
Right.
I've created an electronic signature. It's there. I don't know how it got there. I didn't put it there.
Where would it have existed? S
I
drive?
think just in Adobe, perhaps.
Okay, yeah, but it has to save it somewhere.
If I put it somewhere, it'd be either in S. That's the kind of thing I probably should put in H.
Right.
But I
Probably
put it in S.
Can you look real quick?
Let's see. Do we still need to be recording this?
Well, it's very good conversation that I want to record because it'll also help me remember.
I cannot access S drive from here.
Oh, you're not on the wireless. That's
Thought I was.
So I am going to stop the recording. I do want to thank everybody for taking a look at the video. And if you have questions, as always, please contact David Canby. My regular direct line is 13702, or my cell phone is 515-745-0624. That is also on the last slide, and that slide is available on the CoreBits website. Look for more information. Thank you.